What is the cost of performance? That is essentially what this book looks at. It sparks conversations about the patriarchy, about misogyny, about performance, about social media, about living a double life, and what defines a woman's worth. Does a woman define her own self-worth, or is she pushed to behave a certain way due to society? This book really hones in on that aspect of what is demanded of women. Hello and welcome to Ome Reads. I'm Ome. This is my review of Yesteryear by Carol Claire Burke. This book has taken the internet by storm, and for very good reason. Let's dive in. We have the protagonist, Natalie, who is a traditional housewife who is married to Caleb and has a number of children. Don't ask me to tell you how many because I can't recall. Her husband Caleb is a man she met at Harvard, and whilst they were at Harvard she mentioned that one day she'd like to live out on a farm. And when they get married, she gets pregnant, she has a child, they decide to live out that dream. One day Caleb is talking amongst a group of friends and mentions his wife and her social media account, and from there things kick off and she becomes viral. So in this version of her life, her relationship with her husband, to how she mothers her children, to how she cooks, cleans, etc., it's all documented, it's all televised, except for the horrible aspects of living a normal life, or in her case, a life involving nannies and babysitters and cleaners and producers, which she hides from the public. One day she wakes up and she finds herself in the 1800s, where she is a traditional housewife. Her husband is the same man, but she refers to him as old Caleb. He's abusive. Her children are nowhere to be seen. She's got 2 younger children and she's struggling to look after them. There is a lot going on and none of it makes much sense. It reads more like a running commentary throughout the whole book until you get to the end and you discover what has happened. Since I have so many thoughts, I thought I would organise them. I made a bunch of notes on this book so that I'm not just rambling. Let's start with Natalie. She is an unlikable character. You're not supposed to like her. That is the purpose of the story. She is a woman who wants to live the traditional wife lifestyle, and I'm not talking 1950s traditional wife. We're talking 1800s traditional wife, but everything is fake, and that's a lot of what we see on social media now. Everything is curated for an audience, everything is put together perfectly so that the best image, the best version of us appears online. We're all guilty of it. We all have a degree of perfection that we show and reflect online. But what happens with Natalie is that she gets carried away in what she's doing, in the sense that she shows a really united front with her family, a beautiful relationship with her husband, a gorgeous dynamic with her children, when in fact her inner thoughts are so horrible, they're so evil. She swears at her children, she dislikes her children, and everything is a performance to her. She's such a terrible person. The main takeaway of this book for me was the concept of performance. Natalie refers to herself as a good Christian woman, yet she doesn't go to the church, she doesn't practice, she doesn't reflect anything that a true Christian would reflect, in that she's a Christian by mouth. She says that she has good Christian values, she's living a performative lifestyle. I noted down all the ways in which she performs as a character. She performs in terms of her religion, she performs based on her gender, she performs in her role of motherhood, she performs in her marriage, she performs in her nuclear family, in terms of her identity, politically. In every single way you could think someone would perform, she performs. There's a scene in the book where she is able to see herself from a clip which she has not curated to post online, and she doesn't recognize that person, and that is who she actually is. But she's become so disillusioned with the version of herself that she puts out there that she doesn't have any sense of understanding or regard to the fact that she has become this horrible, or she is this horrible person who lies, who puts up a front, who judges people. This is one of my pain points with respect to the patriarchy, when there's internalized misogyny and there's this idea that if you don't conform to what the patriarchy considers correct for you, then you are open to being judged, you are open to being disliked, you are open to being critiqued, you are open. Yes, of course, everyone can have an opinion, they can critique you, but this is very vindictive on her part. She thinks she is better than everybody else. And I think this is one of the things that really irks me about religious performance, about identity performance, about appearing on the outside that everything is perfect. There are no problems here, there are no issues here. That often leads to passive aggressive behavior where people aren't truthful or honest about their actual feelings, and they will passively behave in an untoward manner towards one another. The bit that annoyed me the most and frustrated me the most about this book and about the protagonist Natalie is that she had internalized misogyny. She disliked women. She hated women. One thing I can't stand is when women hate other women. When it comes from a place of, if I put you down, that makes me appear better. Absolutely not. But it's blatantly apparent when someone thinks they are better than you because they perform or they adhere to a certain practice. One of the questions that I consider as part of the Of Rooms and Worth curriculum is a woman's worth. What defines a woman's worth? Who defines it? How does society define a woman's worth? Does a woman define her own self-worth, or is she pushed to behave a certain way due to society? And I think this book really hones in on that aspect of what is demanded of women. It shows you the flip side, what the patriarchy also expects of men. One of the questions we should be asking is Natalie a horrible person because she just is? Or is she a product of her environment? Is she a product of a patriarchal system? Is she a product of an environment where her husband is part of the manosphere? For those of you who don't already know, I run a book club on Fable called the Insufferable Readers Club, and the reason that it was set up is because I started a personal curriculum titled Of Wombs and Worth, an exploration of the surveillance of women's choices. And we started out the year reading books on womanhood, on motherhood, and I think this book ties in really well with those themes, and these are themes that I'm really interested in, and I might dip into that whilst I'm talking about this book. So that's just a bit of context for anyone who's not familiar with the Insufferable Readers Club. If you do want to join in on the conversation, feel free to download the app. It's free. You can, it's not sponsored. This is just a place where I thought I could connect readers. There's 160 plus members in there right now, and it's a fantastic place for discussion and reflection. And next month we are reading Girl, Woman, Other. Let's talk about Caleb. So Caleb is referred to as a stupid man who doesn't know how to provide for his wife. He doesn't know how to manage his day-to-day. I didn't buy it. I didn't buy that he was stupid, because there's actions that he does within the story which just shows that he's using weaponized incompetence to get away with stuff. So for example, there's a scene in the book where he transfers funds that she's making from her social media to another account, and if you're doing that, you're not as stupid as you're making yourself out to be. This is a real problem in society when there's a use of, oh, I don't know how to cook. Well, I'm sorry, women weren't born with recipes ingrained in their head or culinary skills, or they weren't born as chefs. They, like you, looked up a recipe, read it, followed it, or got a recipe from someone. Nowadays, you can just look online for a recipe and follow the instructions. This weaponized incompetence really irks me. You pretend you can't do it, but what irks me the most is when women encourage that behavior. So a man is perfectly capable of doing a task, but the women will say, oh, he can't do that, or do that for him. Sorry, is this a child? Or is this an adult? Switching back to Natalie, I think there's such a huge emphasis on social responsibility of posting online. What responsibility do we have as individuals when we are posting online? And there's a point where Natalie's pulled up on this because one of the side characters in the story says to her, hey, you've got nannies, you've got helpers, but why do you not show any of this online? Because you're making women think that you are able to do X, Y, Z, and they feel less than, but really you're using resources that they don't have access to get you ahead. And she just says, I just don't want to show that part of the life that I'm leading. This book really illustrates how women are pitched against one another. And it really shows you the flaws of the patriarchy. It shows you the flaws of being part of the manosphere. Apparently this book was inspired by Ballerina Farms. I had no idea who that was until I read the book and heard people talk about it. So I went and looked it up. Ballerina Farms is a influencer who lives a traditional lifestyle similar to the protagonist in Yesteryear. And she was a ballerina before living this traditional lifestyle, and then she got married and she had lots of kids and apparently lost her identity. To know that it's based on a real person's life, that's really scary. In terms of the consequences of Natalie's actions and her lifestyle, I think one thing that I thought was really interesting is you have to live with the decisions you make. And one of the things I took away from this book is you choose who you want to be with, and that is who you will be with right until the end. And that is scary if it's not the right person. I didn't think it was a fantastic read, but did I think it was a valuable read? Yes, absolutely. I think the talking points that arise from it are in fact exceptional. It has very short chapters, and that makes it a very entertaining, fast-paced read. I do have to admit, once you pick this up, it is really difficult to put it down. It's unput-downable. Because you don't know what's happening, you want to keep on reading. It's similar to Piranesi in the sense that you can't put it down because you don't know what's going on and you want to figure out what's happening. There are dual timelines, so there is a lot of back and forth between the two time periods, and usually I hate dual timelines, but I think it was done well. The snippets from the 1800s are much less than the ones that take place in the present day. The ending was disappointing for me personally because I felt like it was rushed. You just really didn't know where the story was going. I did not expect the ending, but it wasn't a shock ending. It just didn't make much sense. It was anticlimactic because once you found out what the actual story is, you realize that it was not what you were expecting at all. This book is described as darkly funny, as it is shocking and gripping, but I didn't find it funny. I didn't find any of it funny. I think it could have been more dramatized than it was on the basis of it being a satire. It was all believable that she had as many kids as she had. She lived the life that she did live. I think what was scary about this book is it feels so entrenched in reality that it's really difficult to digest that this is the world we live in. One of the things I didn't enjoy about it is I just couldn't understand the genre that I was reading. Is this a hoax? Is this a reality show? Is it a test from God? Is there time travel in it? I think it's definitely mystery, psychological thriller. I gave it 4 stars. I'm still going to sit with that rating for a bit because I've only just finished it and I want to see how I feel going forward. If you read this book and you really enjoyed it, then I recommend that you pick up The Mad Wife. The Mad Wife is a book about a woman who lives in the 1950s as a traditional housewife. It's a domestic drama with psychological suspense and you won't want to put it down. This was released at the end of last year and I read it earlier this year. I highly recommend it. So yeah, for fans of Yesteryear, please pick up The Mad Wife. If you do pick it up, let me know what you think of it. If you've already read it, let me know whether you see the overlap between the two. These are just my fresh thoughts having read the book. If you want to read it, we are reading it as part of the Insufferable Readers Club, so feel free to join us on there. That's all for now. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you thought of Yesteryear in the comments. I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching. Bye.